Meeting called to order. Today is Tuesday, September 17th. Town Council, it is now 6:05 PM. Town Council meeting is the Sewer Commission, 1170 Main Street, West Warwick, Rhode Island. Jay, will you lead us in prayer?
We ask for the wisdom to make good decisions, to speak with confidence, and listen with compassion, and work together to create a better way of life for the people of West Warwick. Amen.
Mark, do this in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Council President Goslin.
Here.
Council Vice President Williamson.
Here.
Councilman Messier.
Here.
Councilman Licciardi. Councilman Dennison.
Here.
Participating communities, Town of Coventry, Town of Situate, City of Cranston, City of Warwick, Town of West Greenwich. Quorum is declared. First item is approval of the minutes of the June 18th, 2024 Sewer Commission meeting.
Move approval.
Second.
Moving second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Reports. Superintendent's report.
Evening, Council.
Hey, Jeff.
So Superintendent's report for August 2024. Our average daily flow was 4.3 million gallons a day. Our maximum flow was 7.7 million gallons per day, and our minimum reached a low of 2.2 million gallons per day. For CBOD removal, we were at 2.1 milligrams per liter, which is 99%. TSS was 2.8 milligrams per liter, which equated 98% removal, which is great. For phosphorus, our limit of 0.1 milligrams, we achieved a 0.09 milligrams per liter. On to sludge. For sludge removal, we sent 0 tons to Synagro. We sent 503 to the landfill for a total of 503 that went out for the month. Right now, we currently do not have any dumpsters with covers or impervious covers, which means contained covers, not just mesh covers. Because we don't have any of those, we cannot send our sludge to Synagro currently. We have to go to the landfill. Currently, we are trying to find alternate options aside from Synagro in Woonsocket, along with alternate transportation options as well. So until that point in time, we will be using the landfill, and hopefully by next month, we will come up with an alternate option or have these impervious covers that will allow us to go back to Woonsocket.
And that's a Woonsocket ordinance, is it not?
Correct.
Yes.
All right. As far as the collection system, we had one sewer backup and a private line on James P. Murphy Highway. For odor complaints, we had 2 in the month of August, one on Anderson Ave and one on Fernwood Drive. I will just touch upon the subject now. I know I've received calls or texts from several council people over the past week, or emails, whatever may have you. And there's been an uptick in calls to DEM as well, as long as the plant. So DEM stopped by the plant yesterday and said we received several calls over the past few days. We want to take a walk around. So myself and my assistant Josh walked around for about an hour. You know, we went to different plants, different parts of the facility, and there was no noticeable odor coming from inside the facility that could be causing something to happen outside of the facility. I'm not saying that we are or not the culprit, but at that point in time when DEM came down, there wasn't anything overly noticeable or objectionable that could have left the facility to cause these odors. So as of right now, as usual, we're looking into it. We're seeing any changes that we can make, and we can hope that we can find something that will be able to fix it and get it back on track.
For the record, Councilman Licciardi just arrived.
Jeff, is it possible that the lack of rain plays any role in the increased odors? Because I'm getting a lot of complaints. I'm actually experiencing it myself. It clearly is, and I know I've sent you, I know you love getting those texts from me.
No, I know.
Yes.
But so there is a bog next to us. And I think 2 years ago, when we had an overly dry summer season, we believed that the bog was the cause of the problem. There was no study done on it, no requirements done for it, but that was just our belief at that time. So if we don't have a lot of rain, it could be the surrounding bodies of water that are drying up, causing odors.
And we're going to continue to meet with DEM?
I'm sorry?
Going to continue to meet with DEM?
Yes, so because of the calls that came in recently this past week, they've asked for us to meet with them regarding our odor study from last year and to discuss the current complaints that have come in. So sometime in early October, we'll have a meeting with DEM to discuss what course of action we're going to take.
Any
Oh,
que- is that-
Oh, and no facility violations for the month. Sorry. That's my report.
Any questions for Jeff? Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Industrial pretreatment report.
Good evening.
Jim?
Hey, Jim.
This is the beginning of fall because we missed all summer here, and it's a sign of fall when pretreatment, when sewers come back into the program. Okay, basically for the month of August, our significant industrial users, Farmera and Quality Beef, all submitted their self-monitoring quarterly reports. All permit limits were met. With regards to Farmera, as I said in earlier meetings, they are changing their process. So they did submit a revised questionnaire explaining the new process that they're looking to develop at that facility. With regards to private wastewater treatment facilities, East Greenwich Square did complete the cleaning of their private line. We examined that it is, in general, the condition of their line is in good condition. The property owner has changed, and so we're going to have a revised O&M manual to reflect that change. With regards to Showcase Cinema, the force main is still not completed, and they are still pumping their wastewater and sending it to, I believe, the city of Cranston. They're close. During this month, they were very close. They have one more section, I believe, to be completed, and they should be back online. With regards to 275 West Natick, which was formerly Extended Stay America, 4N Properties, Eagles Nest and Briarwood did submit their O&M manual within the scheduled time limit, and we are currently reviewing that. So all of the O&M manuals for all of the 21 users are in-house. Obviously, some are better than others, but we work, since we have that base now, we can make changes, suggest modifications, and work with them, but we do have a good basis for that. With regards to Ball Hill Realty, they have modified their private wastewater system. The plans were found to be in compliance, and a letter was issued. During the month of August, we inspected 9 food services within the town of West Warwick. All but 2 of them were in compliance. First Famous Pizza, their grease recovery device was not operational, and they had no records of it being cleaned. Nor was, for the same instance, at Hong Kong Restaurant, did not have a cleaning records. An examination of their grease recovery found the system to be put in very poor condition. So a notice of violation was issued to those 2 facilities. Plans were reviewed for 2 866 Tyoke Avenue. Plans were in general compliance, and a letter was issued. United Air submitted plans for 300 Quaker Lane in Warwick. Plans are currently under review. Honey Baked Ham submitted an application. The plans were in general compliance, and again, a letter was issued. Now, Kava Restaurant at 1009 Centerville Road. Originally, when we reviewed the plans, this is part of what we refer to as the old Woolahoosian line, which was Shaw's back in the day, if anybody still remembers that. And where TGI Fridays was in all of that area. So originally, we thought that this property was not part of the original agreement. So that's where it stood in August. As we followed up in September, that property is part of the original Woolahoosian properties in agreement. So that aspect of the project is approved. Moving forward, the restaurant will be submitting pre-treatment applications for the restaurant. With regards to connections, 13 Pleasant Street completed their construction. A Flash Car Wash in West Greenwich continues this month, and 282 Pulaski Street continues construction this month. And that's all I have.
Any questions for Jim? Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Next is financial report. Good evening, council. Year-to-date operating and debt expenses for the current fiscal year through the end of August totaled $1,320,531, which is 14% of the annual budget. That number will increase. You'll see that increase next month because we made our large September bond payment earlier in the month. Overtime for the month of August was $13,214, which is 8% of the annual budget. Year-to-date overtime is total $25,622, which is 16% of the annual budget. And we have a savings in our general wages line item of $9,036 due to a vacant lead operator position. Sludge removal costs through the end of August are $158,555, which is 21% of the annual budget. Our CPI adjustment, contractual CPI adjustment with Cinegro has kicked in. It was 3.5%, which was retroactive to July 1st. That'll put the rate when we are able to offload at Cinegro again at around $107 a ton. Fiscal year 25 sewer usage and industrial collections through the end of August totaled $2,683,804, which is 34% of the total billed. Prior year sewage usage collections through the end of August totaled $126,101, of which $13,193 is penalty interest. Current fiscal year sewer assessment collections through the end of August totaled $155,125, which is 69% of the total billed. So again, we're seeing the same trend as last fiscal year, where folks are paying down their sewer assessments to save on the interest. And cash and investments through the end of August totaled $3,850,145. That is my financial report, Council President.
Any questions for Tony? Thank you, Tony.
You're welcome. Old business, private pump stations.
We'll put this on the agenda.
Just to report, obviously, the council wanted us to report on that, and I did in my pre-treatment report. Just to summarize again, the 4 that were outstanding have submitted their O&M manuals, and we'll constantly go through and review and edit, but they were generally in okay position. Some were better than others. Some you'll find with private and condominium associations, they're I don't want to call them less professional, but they don't have wastewater operators or engineers doing it. It's the property manager, but we're getting there. I think that's a good step in that direction.
Any questions on that?
Jim, I have a question on that. So I caught wind that Coventry it's been proposed of a new development up near the center of New England with upwards of 700 units or so. And they have their private pump station up there, correct?
Correct.
And you manage that.
Well, we reviewed the O&M, yes.
So if that's allowed, which I don't care if it is or it's none of my business, but it's going to, will that affect us at our sewer plant?
And
How?
they have the capacity, number one. So the town of Coventry, whatever the development is and the flows from that area, have the capacity. They've got 2.5 million gallons plus or minus, and they're under, I think maybe 200,000. So they're way under their capacity. With regards to the private pump stations, and you know the famous Bob Rose, but one of the questions he will ask with that development is, what is the capacity of the pump station? Does it have the capacity to handle the flow? We do that religiously throughout the program, similar with other projects in East Greenwich and Warwick, where they tie into a private pump station. There has to be documentation that capacity exists and that station can be used.
So if everything goes from, say, all these different private pump stations, and they all come down to our sewer plant, and there's many more or some more that are going to be built, at what point do we examine if we can handle that? Because the more that comes down, right, the way I'm looking at this, and maybe it's wrong, but you put in a few more pump stations from a lot more condos, it all comes down to us, and we're looking at, all right, that means more waste for us, correct? that means more that has to go to Synagro, which can't handle it. And then we have to go to the landfill. So is there gonna be more of a burden on us financially? Because we're the one that decides the budget.
And it's, first, there's multiple questions there, so let me go through the order. First, the communities have the capacity, okay? So the interceptors that they tie into the collection system, the arteries that bring the wastewater to the plant have been sized for that flow. So we will then double check that. Pump stations have a misnomer. Pump stations don't generate any more flow. It's just that the way the land is contoured, you can't flow by gravity. So the only reason a pump station is put there is because it cannot flow by gravity. If they could eliminate pump stations, obviously everybody would. And to answer your question about the burden, don't forget, if more people are coming into the system, more people will be built. If there's, I'm just throwing a number, another 200,000 gallons a day generated from the town of Coventry, the town of Coventry will build that 200,000 additional flow based on what your current billing rates are. So if your rates increase because you have to handle more sludge, well, you've got a bigger population base to spread that capital or operating cost. So but it does, I mean, obviously, as Jeff pointed out, I think the average for the month of September was what, 7.5? What was the average for September?
But at some point, I'm looking
Four,
at
three.
when we have to come up with grant money and millions of dollars to fix problems possibly at the plant. Is this gonna be somewhat, just contributes to that cost, correct?
Everybody pays, in other words, you've authorized a $7.3 million bond. That bond is being paid proportionally by all of the communities. Okay, so the town of Coventry, and again, I don't know the exact, but 20, let's call it 21%.
Other people.
So all of those, and the letter goes out, we've informed them of it. We'll be sending another breakdown because that bond payments will start next fiscal year.
Okay.
So to get into the capacity, I think
Jim, hold
Councilwoman,
on 1 second. Just want to mention, just make sure you speak it into the microphone because I guess people can't hear you online.
Oh, sorry.
No, I know yours is kind of far away, but it was brought up and I actually went back and listened to council meeting last time and myself sitting back here to
Sorry.
here. So just want to let you know. Thank you.
as the Councilwoman pointed out, the average flow is 4.3. The design flow of that plant is 11 million gallons a day.
Okay.
So we're within that range.
So
Thank
if
you.
Coventry is currently 21% or whatever, if they do add 700 units, I assume that percentage goes up?
No,
It does not, okay.
no. The percentage of 20, they have committed financially to 21%. Right now, so capital wise, they have to pay the 21% of the total. But operationally, if they represent only 10
700
or,
people will be billed.
right, if they
Yeah.
represent 10% of the population service, that's what they're paying. But if it grows to 20% of the population of the
Yep.
entire system, that's what they pay.
And this could be for anybody, Coventry,
It-
East Greenwich,
it-
Warwick,
Yes,
Cranston, right?
it's any regional partner in the system.
Thank you for clearing it up.
Okay. Anything
Any
else?
more questions on private pump stations for Jim? Thank you, Jim.
Okay.
Public comment.
We're at public comment for sewer. Any public comment on sewer?
Good evening, everyone. Paul Villa, 15 Janet Drive. I find it hard to believe that we only had 2 complaints at the plant. I mean, I had 2 complaints coming in here tonight. They're asking me what's going on. I was here several months ago. I mentioned this. They said there was no problems. Have we had any violations at the plant for smell from DEM? Have they issued a violation for smell at the plant?
So back in July, DM came down and there was a letter of noncompliance. It's not an actual violation, but it's just saying that they came down, they had the odor on Pontiac Ave. DM did a tour around the plant and determined that where our sludge dumpsters were, had the same odor that they saw on Pontiac Avenue.
Okay, because, so where is that letter of violation now? Is it over or done? Is it being negotiated? What's going on for the penalty? Or is there any penalty?
So at that point in time, no, there's not. They just say, there's an issue, we're letting you know about it, here you go. Because of these recent upticks in odor complaints coming in this week and last week, when DEM came around again, even though they didn't find anything at the facility during their tour yesterday, we're still getting a letter saying that because of the issues that we found in July, or the amount of complaints in July, along with recently, we want to have discussion with you and your management team about how to address this going forward. So we'll be doing that sometime in early October.
Okay. And as I said, in the last time I was here, whole lot better than it used to be years ago, okay? But still, it's not constant, but it's pretty often now. You know, just about every day you're getting some kind of smell from there. So I just wanted to check on that.
The
And,
last couple of weeks have been especially bad. There's no doubt about that.
but it's been on and off all summer. I mean, I think I might have been here 4 or 5 months ago and mentioned it, but, or several months ago anyway. The other thing just to put on, as we were talking about these private pump stations and things, and just to put it on your radar, with the new housing legislation, understand that a lot of the buildings we have now, the number of people living in them could be doubling, rising by 25%, 50%. So going down the road, we should be looking at that because the legislation doesn't provide for upgraded sewer lines and water lines based on the towns. Cities and towns can't demand it. Only the state can do that. So just put it out there for thought before we get stuck with it down the road.
Well,
We
that
maybe
could-
want to be looking at that.
That could be monitored through the building official's office as long as people are doing things right and pulling the proper permits. So that can be monitored. And I think the building official is well aware of the new legislation that, you know, we'll be keeping a close eye on what's going on in West Warwick.
Right, because we don't, if we need to have upgrades at the plant because of the additional sewer flow, we want to be ahead of that, not behind it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Good evening. My name is Vincent Marzullo, 28 Crossland Road. It's a little bit bewildering that we're still dealing with this issue over 30 years. I can recall being at this podium with George McKenna, council president, wrestling with this whole notion of odors. It's kind of disturbing to hear that we're not certain that the lack of water flow is not contributing to the issue. We knew back then, and it was determined back then, that that was a significant contributing factor, as well as storing the sludge in open space, which got us into the compost business. I'm not sure if we're still doing composting,
No.
but we had found a way in which to treat the sludge back at that point and bring in some revenue. But I'm kind of and I'm getting calls, obviously, because I just live up the hill from the plant. But are we storing the sludge in an open building? And how quickly are we removing the sludge? I'm getting the impression that we're still very indifferent or casual and not in any urgent hurry to address or remediate the odor issue. And that neighborhood has had to experience this for decades. So I'm a little troubled, and this is the first time that I've had the opportunity to meet or see Jeff, but it's coming across that, you know, we're not in a hurry to really do something that fixes the system. Because here we are 30 years later, still dealing with
I
this.
think you would, if you were to ask the superintendent, he would tell you there is definitely a sense of urgency based on the communication he has had from council members and the town manager. So it's not a case that we're indifferent about it. It's just trying to figure out how the heck we correct it without throwing a bunch of perfume in it, which is what we did years ago,
Right,
which was
to mask
horrible.
the problem.
Yes,
Is the
yes,
sludge in an open facility?
No.
no, and it's, yes.
So our sludge dumpsters are, you know, the 30-yard demo dumpsters is what I call them, is what we fill up. We usually fill about 7 of those per week, and usually we'll fill, if we fill 2 per day, Usually between, 7 AM and 10 PM, we'll fill 2 of them out. That next morning, the driver comes to take them away. Currently, after we fill a dumpster, it's an open container, so we're putting actual lime on it to help with odor control at this point in time.
Dumpster inside or outside?
So it's in our old compost area, which is an open area that with a roof, so half and half to answer that question.
I think one thing that we did learn at that time, that the sludge was actually good sludge, that it wasn't high in metals and in chemicals, and that there may be some other alternative uses of the sludge rather than bringing them to, a fill. So I would continue to urge you to be creative about how to deal with this, but the reality is we've been struggling with this for several decades now, so thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Any other public comment? Hearing none?
Motion to adjourn.